the truck and load it up. And I felt so uncomfortable because I wanted to refer to them, but I didn't know what pronoun to use. I had missed their name and I felt stupid about asking for their name again, which was my first mistake. And I didn't even know how to relay the story, because if I were to say they or them, people might automatically assume I was talking about both people. So this is just, again, my stupidity and my insecurity of trying not to hurt anybody and honor them. What should I have done? How should I have handled that? I mean, I guess to be more confident and say, hey, I want to honor you. I want to do the, I didn't have the guts. Mo, what should I have done?
Oh, those are so good. Those questions are so good. And I mean that from the perspective of, it's so nice to hear people asking those questions and really giving a shit about it. So in that sense, you take a little bit of heart that just being an ally and having good intentions is a good start.
Okay.
So there's no right answer because everybody is an individual. But there's a few ways that you can approach it. One is to, just as you said, just reintroduce, ask for names again. You can say, my name is Sherry and my pronouns are she, her, as a kind of like a prompt.
Okay. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that, because that kind of diffuses the situation. It honors them by saying, I want to know what yours are. All of those things, right?
And it takes the ambiguity off the person who, is often the ambiguity is pointed at, right? So you're saying, maybe I need to reintroduce myself so that you can reintroduce yourself, instead of just kind of pointing like, I didn't quite get that from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another aspect too, which is sometimes people are exploring their genders and they don't necessarily know what pronoun they want you to use, or so sometimes if you ask like, hey, what are your pronouns, or if you go introduce yourself and you're expecting like the pronoun exchange, like I'm she, her, waiting for them to respond and they don't give you a pronoun, two things could be happening. You're thinking, well, this person's not an ally, or this person is a queer person who is like still working their way out of the closet, and so that is a place that needs embrace and safety, and
so
there needs to be room for that too.
How would you honor that? Because I mean, you're right, it does kind of put pressure on them, and you don't know where they are in finding their identity. So it is kind of like and that's kind of like it was with this person, because they had nails and wore makeup but were dressed manly. It was, I could only say they. I mean, and at that point, it was like, how do I distinguish from the two people? So if I now it's like, okay, well, I mean, is that pressure okay? Is that something that is expected, or?
There's so much going on in your story.
Sorry.
So did you assume that this person is non-binary because they were dressed kind of androgynously, or did you feel like you missed their pronouns but in their introduction and you didn't exactly hear for sure?
When they got out of the truck, it was, hey, I'm so-and-so and I'm so-and-so. It was really quick, didn't get their names. At first sight, I thought they were feminine. And then again, looking more and looking at this person, I thought, okay, there is some, gender non-binary going on here.
Yeah.
So that's why, and that's when I was like, oh God, I should have asked for pronouns, or again, a name. I mean, because I was just so lost.
Yeah. Okay. So let's back up quite a bit.
Okay.
Because either way, if you assume this person is masculine, feminine, or non-binary, you still assumed their gender. And they didn't give it to you.
No.
So in some cases, that's just, especially if you're having a really casual interaction at a store and you're not like introducing yourself to a colleague, you know what I mean? Who cares? And so like for the queer answer that I hear a lot and that I would love for like the wider culture to embrace is like, just use they if you don't know someone's gender. Just default to they, right? If it's, we do that already, if the mail carrier is coming and you don't know their gender, you refer to them as they, right? It's just once we see people, we expect that somehow we're going to be able to identify their gender. But that's
interesting.
Myth.
Okay.
To be honest, that is a myth, because you can be a feminine presenting person and that your gender expression is like what's on the outside, and your gender identity is how you conceptualize who you are in your gender. So those things don't have to line up. You can be feminine presenting, wear skirts, have long hair, have your nails done, and be masculine on the inside and use he, him pronouns. So
okay, that's interesting.
So don't assume people's genders is kind of like, yeah, but
yeah, that's in a nutshell. Then you can't assume.
Yeah, basically. And I think I sense exhaustion on the part of the cisgender world of like, but it's so much more simple if we just, if we can just look at you and say he or she. But that is a really limited view of a really diverse humanity,
You said something, Meg, that hit me in my heart, which was I sense exhaustion in the cis het. I can't remember the exact words. And that hurt because our being uncomfortable shouldn't be your problem.
Exactly.
And I say that from the perspective of racially, I was trying to pass. I was trying to be comfortable. I know I have heard from youth that I have personally interacted with and have taken in, who on the outside look like I want to put a label on you, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to hurt anybody. That's my problem. That's not their problem. That's not for them to figure out. And I still put the onus, and even today, and I want to bring this up because even as much as I have been striving to advocate for LGBTQI ever since my own children came out, oh my gosh, maybe over a decade ago, I still get it wrong, as I did with you. And exactly what Sherry said, I struggled. Oh my God, I know, I was told, I know, I saw it somewhere. I'm supposed to know this person and I don't get it right. And I'm going to hurt somebody that I care about. And I just went off a rabbit hole. I was gone to a mad tea party before I even got there. And I ended up unconsciously putting the onus on you to correct me.
Well, give a little bit of the background of what happened.
So out there, Facebook world, live stream world, I so wanted Meg to come onto the show because they are outspoken. They are very vocal. They are transparent. They're vulnerable. They're intelligent. They're funny. And they're not afraid to tell it like it is. And not whenever in any of our conversations, Meg, that we've had, it's never been, I'm telling you something with the intent of slapping you across the face and setting you straight, for lack of a better word. It is, I want you to get this right. And it's done in a way that is very, boom, there's no mistake about it. And boom, I still love you.
That's the goal.
And yet, yes. And let me back up a bit. My previous employer, I was the only female working with 46 men, and they were very transphobic, they were homophobic, they were racist, they were everything that you never wanted to be around. As I always do in a new job, I get involved with the local LGBTQIA group in the workplace. And one of the things that came up was putting pronouns in your signature block. One of the reasons was to better form the ability to communicate effectively, not just because somebody may be non-binary, somebody may be transgender, and because off of an email, you cannot tell who you're speaking to. If they use names that are normally seen as masculine or feminine, or they use initials, it is a better way to do that. And it does promote, like you were saying, Sherry, a means of, hey, this is who I am. I identify as she, her, hers. And it invites I can let my guard down a bit, is what one of my colleagues, not in that office, but in the group, told me. I can let my guard down because I know I can be a little bit more authentic with you right off the bat, simply because you use pronouns.
It denotes allyship.
Yes.
And it also, so going back to the very beginning when I was saying some people don't know what their pronouns are, or they don't know if it's safe to share them. And that's a very big deal.
Yes.
So when you, as an ally, put your pronouns in your title, in your bio, on your email signatures, that creates space for us folks who have less conventional pronouns to know that it's safe to share, right? It's a welcome space.
I see you.
Yeah.
And I still hurt that you say it's an unconventional pronoun, because they and them, they aren't. They're like centuries old. The English or British or whatever, they used to use them all the time.
That's true.
Yeah.
But we usually associate they and them as plural. And I know that a lot of my friends that struggle with this type of thing say that. So how do you combat that, or how do you address that when people say, I mean, I've seen it all over Twitter. That's plural. Mm-hmm. How am I talking to more people? And that was kind of what happened with me with the people who came to buy the fish tank, was there were two of them. So in telling the story, how did I differentiate one from the other and still honor that and say they?
The same way that you do in writing. So,
okay.
Sometimes in writing, when you're writing a sentence and you're using too many pronouns, you can't determine which pronoun was referring to which person. If they have the same pronoun, then you would use their name instead. It's really, we have the tools, we're just not used to using them.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think, I mean,
one of the things we had it drilled into us that they them pronouns are plural and we don't use them for singular, and that's not proper grammar. The fact is that language evolves, and in this case we need it to evolve, right?
Completely.
So it is what it is. This is the word that our culture is using to denote a singular person whose correct pronouns are not he or she. That's it.
I have another question for you, Meg.
Yeah.
How important was it for you to claim your pronouns?
Okay. It's a journey. At the very first kind of realization that I am gender something else, gender queer, gender something else, I still used she, her pronouns for about a year. And then it was really kind of I had to talk myself through my internalized transphobia, my sense of correct grammar, and the fact that they, them is an othering term, right? Because we have us and we have them. And applying that them to myself was actually a little bit difficult at first.
Oh,
But the payoff is that when I talk about myself and when people that know me talk about me, I am now experiencing a fuller sense of my identity, and that is priceless. So, but it took probably I think a 2-year process to go from
Wow.
coming out to really starting to own my pronouns. Yeah.
One of the main reasons I wanted to do this show was because I see a lot of hate when this is involved.
Mhm.
There's videos all over social media about a trans person saying what their pronouns are, and then it's made into a meme or a GIF or something like that where it just completely mocks them.
Yeah.
And I don't understand, but this goes back to who I am, who I've always been. I remember my mother saying, "You're such a flaming liberal," but I don't understand why someone else that should affect you in any way, shape, or form if it doesn't affect you. I don't understand why someone would take that anger and hate and say you can't call yourself something. I was in trying to think of all of this. I was thinking, when does it become not okay? Because children can say that they're whatever they want to be, and we go, "Yes, you
Mhm.
are. How cute is that? You go." And then at some point, as an adult, it's not okay anymore. And I'm
I can
not
tell you
talking about
exactly when
when.
when my boobs came in. When
Oh,
I
I
used to
lost you there. You broke up. What was that?
I said when my boobs came in, when my chest developed,
Mm.
when to the world I was no longer an androgynous child, then the gender expectations started to be imposed more than they ever had been in my life.
Yes.
So
Yes.
sexuality is
Yes.
when the gender comes in. I
Yes.
guess that makes
Ooh,
sense. Yeah.
actually, I understand that. In the military, I was an airman. I was a dude. I was, hey, you guys. I was everything masculine, and had to put away my own femininity to fit in so that they wouldn't be uncomfortable and to stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be hurt.
Yeah.
And yes, as soon as those breasts popped out, everything changed.
Yeah. It was very rough.
Mm.
And a lot of trans folks, I mean, we're talking about anybody with a feminine body that's been regulated, and we were burned as witches 400 years ago. Don't get me started on misogyny.
Yeah.
But anybody that's having a trans experience is having somebody imposing gender expectations on them that also don't match. Not only are those horrible expectations, but it's like, but you got this wrong. That's not me. What are we talking about here? So it's like a double layer of what?
Well,
So
and
that
isn't there some entitlement there too that they get to tell us who we are?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I mean they in the sense of society.
Yeah.
If you don't like, you can apply it to all of the marginalized people in some way.
Yeah.
Whether they're labeled, whether it's a gender, a sexuality, a skin color. It's always the man gets to
Yeah.
tell us who we are.
That's this is a little bit off topic, but my trans wife, is dealing with the, processing internalized transphobia and dealing with the TERF arguments. TERF means
Yep.
exclusionary radical feminism. The TERF arguments that
J.K. Rowling.
you haven't grown up as a woman, you haven't experienced the kind of misogyny that we have. You're not a real woman, but she still has the man telling her what she can and can't do with her body, and I'm just like, you're having a very feminine experience right now. You know, like, yeah,
Welcome to the world.
yeah,
Welcome
Yeah.
to the world.
yeah. I want to go back to the original question too, because I kind of skirted it at first, but I think that there's important places where asking what are your pronouns is important and a good thing to do. And that's like, you're a teacher working with students. How do you create safe
Yes.
space for them to tell you?
Yeah.
You know, or you're going to be working with somebody closely and you're going to have to be referring to them a lot. So honestly, I just ask. And queer people don't usually get offended by the question. They usually are like, ally, thank you. My pronouns are da da da. It's the cis people who get offended when you haven't assumed their gender correctly. So there's like a cultural difference there. And I don't know what to do about that, but my recommendation is to say, hey, I don't want to offend you. I just want to put it out there that maybe we could say what our pronouns are. And as awkward as that is, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It can be life-saving. It can
Yeah.
honestly be life-saving. We had a transgender man that we took in after he gave birth. And there were times that we had to go to the hospital and they dead named him. They insisted that he was not he. And aside from already the postpartum depression that he was experiencing, it further ripped him apart. To bear witness to that and want to just rip somebody's face off when it's, look, he told you exactly who he is and what to call him. Please don't. This is not the time. This is not the time to do that. It can be life-saving.
Yeah.
Pronouns. A simple thing like pronouns.
Well, and let's just put it out there. This isn't new. This isn't something that because prayers stopped in school or there's technology. Jesus spoke of this in the Bible. The eunuchs are completely gone, completely all the way through the Old Testament. Jesus actually spoke of them in the New Testament. So while he might have abandoned a lot of the LGB, the trans and the eunuchs are the same. So for someone to say, well, this is new, or I don't have to deal with this, or anything else that's selfish, let's get back to love your neighbor. And this is how to love your neighbor.
Yeah. And
is by honoring them.
When you look, I mean, the Bible is one interestingly put together source, to put it nicely.
That's a good way of saying it.
But if you look at like history and other literature from other cultures, you see that trans people have been here forever.
Forever.
Yeah. In Samaria, the goddess Inanna was worshipped by Enheduanna, who was a high priest. And underneath her were, I think that's the word is pili pili, which means like the transformed, right? And there's a part in some of the literature where I think it's just like a shred of a manuscript, but it's a poem. And in the poem, Inanna turns someone whose heart was broken, and she transforms it, and in the transformation changes their gender. And it's beautiful.
Finding Nemo was trans. Nemos are trans.
Yes.
I mean, you see it throughout nature. And one of the things that helped me tremendously in my deconstruction, reconstruction, all of that, was look to nature to find God. And so if we see it in nature, we can't say, A, it's a sin, or B, that God hates it. Because if you believe that in a God, and if you believe that God created everything, then you can't also believe that it's wrong. This whole hate the sin, love the sinner is just fucking bullshit. And I'm gonna say it out. It's bullshit. Am I back? If someone said to me, which I've heard before, Sherry, I really like you, but I don't like your voice, or I don't like how tall you are, then you don't really like me. So to say and to judge and to do all of those, it's one of the most atrocious things that the church has come up with. It totally it cuts the person in half to say, I only like part of you, but yet it's unconditional love, and it's not. That's why I say wholeheartedly and firmly, it's fucking bullshit.
It is. It's a justification to be a jackwagon is all it is. It's a passive aggressive Karening. It's a passive aggressive. I don't know who the opposite of Karen is, but
Chad, apparently.
Chad. It's
sorry, Chads of the world.
It's a means of being able to trick yourself into getting away of being an asshole, quite honestly.
Yeah. Justification.
It's the whole bless your heart thing, right? You don't really mean that. You don't mean that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, yeah, I think about it as a similar logic to like the kind of mental gymnastics you have to do to think separate but equal made sense.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And it's usually originating with the same people too. Interesting.
Yes. Yeah. Michelle made a good point, and I remember that all the time. Yes.
Well, and before the patriarchy, we had a goddess. So there was some equality. There was some of that. But back to your, what we were saying that this is ancient. There was an American Indian, I believe it was American Indian, but that believes there's 7 genders, I think it is. That because of the fluidity of nature, because of all of those things, I believe it was 7 genders that they came up with, and they had names for them. So if we need to love our neighbor, respect each other, then perhaps we can look to the ancients for that, as opposed to hate and judgment and everything else that we find there.
Yeah, but I mean, as you're pointing out, 2 different contemporary cultures as well, and some of that has been lost in colonialism.
Totally.
So I don't know specifically what Native American cultures you're referring to, but I do know that there are lots and lots of words in different Native cultures for different genders, and we find in India, I believe there's 5 recognized genders that are being brought back after colonialism, where they were erased and punished. But we really lose a lot. And like as a seminarian, I think about how much that's influenced like by the dualism of like Zoroastrianism and Gnosticism, and we have a lot of binary thinking that's kind of really just very ingrained in our Western minds.
In all aspects. I mean, it's I always say people tend to think in black and white and miss all of the grays, and this is part of it. The very first video I ever posted on my Man Has Ruined God page was "Don't be a dick." And it really, you cannot like things, but just don't be a dick about it. And that kind of summed up what I was saying, because it's like, if you don't understand it, it's okay. I know there's awkwardness, there's insecurities. I felt it. And I know that evolutionary wise, we need to identify people because of the whole risk and harm. But we've passed that situation in our DNA. We have the thought process now that we can stop that fear. I've been there where my brain was crunching because I'm like, what is this person in front of me?
What do I do?
And then I go, oh, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It was easy as that. It stopped the panic in my brain. It doesn't matter. It's none of your business. Just see the person in front of you, because none of that matters.
My daughter is currently going through that, as she initially at 14 identified as lesbian. And then as she grew older and became more mature and got out of the house more, she became bi. I shouldn't say became, because I don't think there's such a thing as became. And now she's like, Mom, I don't know who I am. And she was crying. She said, what do I do? Because she fell in love with a boy. And I said, honey, you're you.
Mm-hmm.
You love who you love. How do you feel that you want to identify? And something that Jennifer Bird brought up was what hit personally for her, the she, they. The idea that there is not so much a duality, but a nebula of who I am. I am not just one thing. I am not linear. I'm not a curlicue. I just am. And that idea being nebulous, actually, that was brought up by Jeffrey March, who is also fantastic non-binary speaker and advocate. The idea that nothing really can define you, really. You are who you are, just as God said, I am who I am. Just like everybody in the great books of wisdom and everything else, we are, you are, they are.
That's what I tell people a lot, that when we choose our terms, we're just choosing language for something that has always existed that we are trying to figure out. And that goes for everyone, but especially for teenagers who are figuring themselves out.
Yes.
Often terms will change a lot because,
Yes.
you're figuring yourself out. It doesn't mean that you changed. It doesn't mean that it was a phase. You have this way of being, and you're trying to find the right words for it is what's happening.
Yes.
I
think on some level we all go through that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and sometimes I do wonder, what would I have been like had I had the freedom and the space to grow and explore who I am? Because I've always idolized my dad. I always wanted to the quote unquote boy things, even the military. I was not the typical girl, not the typical wife, not the whatever. And there's a part of me that feels, I wish I could go back.
Anna.
And
you don't have to go back.
Exactly.
Well, in a way, because I do want to say that there are some things that, just as you said, teenagers grow in and they try on, and then they discover. In a lot of ways, trying to re-examine something or someone that's already there, it's almost like grasping at smoke. If that makes sense.
It does.
I think it's a great analogy.
I think we're all grasping at smoke.
Yeah.
Smoking.
Miguel.
Anyway.
Miguel, you go ahead and ask all the questions and make all the comments you want. I wish you were here on the panel. No problem at all. No apologies needed. Oh, see, Michelle beat me to it. No apologies needed.
Yes. So, what if there were absolutely no labels? What if everybody was simply identified as their names? Go ahead.
Caveat.
Caveat.
So there's this constant tension for me, because when you're queering something, you are like you're intentionally blurring the lines, right? And you're wanting to get to a place where you can be seen as nebulous. You can be outside the boxes that you feel like you were put in. You can, blurring the line between masculine and feminine and these dichotomies that we think we have. And that to me is so like godly. And at the same time, we have, our social constructions have real consequences and weight in our lives. And they are things that we can be proud of too, and they're communities that we're a part of. And so I go, it's a back and forth kind of thing, or maybe it's a both and kind of thing, really, is like,
Both and.
I am nebulous, and I can tell you about that with these specific words, but I want you to know that those words aren't perfect. They're just the best that I have right now.
So
like
in a way, kind of like race, right? When folks say, "Oh, there is no one race; there's a human race," and
Yes,
well,
and
there was a point where people identified and separated by race, and in order to feel a sense of belonging, sometimes identifying as that race gives you that sense of belonging. So how does that fit with what you're saying? Because I'm so glad that you actually said that.
I
The
think
caveat,
the
carrot.
We are proud of who we are. And for minorities, that often comes with the struggle, because the world isn't very nice to people who don't fit, the specific box. And that goes for all kinds of minorities, and humans have always identified in some way with an in-group and an out-group, and that's not always a bad thing. The bad thing is when you stop seeing the out-group as human, right?
Yeah.
So in some world where we didn't have race, we would still have national origin, or I went to this church, or, and those groups are wonderful things. They're part of who we are. They make us up. I think Black people should be proud to be Black, just like, and I think that's part of what the Black Lives Matter movement has put forth too. So I don't know if I answered that question, but it's an important both and.
Well, it did make me think of a metaphorical means of, in so many things government-wise, you cannot proceed to the next page unless you put yourself in a box.
Otherwise, that's funny, because that's what Miguel just said. But our system would not know how to function, because capitalism is based on my mind just went demographics. Yes. Demographics run everything. They run funding, they run marketing, they run banking, they run the government. Everything is done by demographics. And if we removed that, not only would companies not know where to spend their money and claim that they were all of this type of thing, but then they also couldn't say, well, these women can't have these rights against them, and these men can't have. If everything was one, then we would truly be one, and our patriarchal capitalistic system would not know how to function. It would just, I wouldn't go as far as saying it would collapse, but it truly would be broken down to, this is the way that we move. This is how we do this. How do we get around it? Men, 18 to 34, number one for video games. Women, 24 to 54, number one for shopping. Literally, our entire system is based on sex and age. Yeah. And so I think that's probably why, especially the patriarchy, is going, no, we can't have this. We can't have this, because if we have this other, then we can't other them. We have to include them. And that just screws our entire demographics and marketing principles. And we'll just have to reprint everything.
I think it's great.
I can hear it now.
Let's keep screwing it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I wanted to, I'm going to misquote, but I wanted to share a quote, and I wish I could remember who did it, but it's this amazing poem. And the punchline of it is, it's by a Black woman. And she says at the end, first thing you should do if you want to be my friend, I think, is, maybe it's dear white people. Oh no. But she says, the first thing you should do if you want to be my friend is forget that I'm Black. And the second thing you must do if you want to be my friend is never forget that I am Black. I just think that's
a both and. Yeah. It's a both and.
Well,
Yeah.
and the whole "I don't see race" denies that.
Right.
You can't say "I don't see race" to a person of color because then you don't see them.
Yeah. I think it's
You know, they,
important to note too just that like there are huge similarities in the way minorities are treated, especially,
Mhm.
but they are just similarities. They're analogous. They're not, they're not it's not the same discussion. So we can talk about race a little bit, but we shouldn't pretend like we're talking about race too much.
No,
Does that make
no.
sense?
It's just another marginalized group that I mean, the first show I ever did was on Black voices and hearing them.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever group in all the marginalized because that's why they're marginalized is being put in a group and othered. So
Okay, Meg, I have another question because you really got me thinking with the idea of we already, it was difficult for you to work with the they them because them was so Heisman action going there. How would that feel to read they them throughout the Bible in regards to God, Jesus, the
Mm.
Holy Spirit? Because they really are they them.
the
Yeah.
patriarchy's
Even
going,
as,
no.
Yes.
well,
Yes.
but
One of the things
they are.
one of the things I say all the time is if you believe in an infinite God and your scripture tells you that we are all made in the image of God, then gender is infinite and we
Yes.
are all made in the image of God. And I think that would be the most incredible thing for me because as a person who was raised as a girl and as a trans person, I have had to reclaim myself in the image of God. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I just think that, that would be incredibly powerful to
Well,
me.
because then you're not an other, and nobody
Exactly.
really
Yeah,
is an other at that
Yeah.
point. We are all they, truly they.
Hmm.
I love that.
And what a difference that would make for everybody who's been put down because they are not he.
Yeah.
Smashing the patriarchy one show at a time. It's I mean, in taking out the she from God, it made us the other. And then to add another dimension to that of genders and pronouns, it gets even further away.
Yeah.
And that love is supposed to be expansive and unconditional. And yet we put so many conditions on it and tell people who they should be and who they need to honor. And to have it all inclusive like that, I really like that. I normally put God in quotes, but I think I'm going to start using they. I
Yeah.
like that a lot.
Yeah. I would love to see, as an Episcopal, our prayer book, I would love to see the ability to use any pronoun,
Yes.
and have they in there as a default. But that way, when a woman gets up and is doing the Eucharistic rituals, and she can refer to God as she, that is incredibly powerful in mystery. And at this, if we come to a place in the future, maybe I hope like 50 years from now, where we can have a more equitable image of God, then it will be just as powerful for a man to stand up there and say he. It won't feel
Right.
violent
Yeah.
anymore. You
Well,
know what I mean?
Meg,
And
why don't you
exclusive.
make a lectionary? Well, Gaffney made the woman's lectionary. You make a they lectionary. I'm serious.
I know.
I am serious. I have another question. How much time do we have?
You're okay.
You have kids, right, Meg?
Oh yes, yes I do.
How are you approaching all of this? How did you start approaching all of this with them?
Mm.
uh
And you don't have to talk about that if that's too much.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to think about how to like pare it down. Because I think it just started with like, I'm your mom, and I'm kind of I'm a weird character that doesn't fit into any of the like mom stereotypes or the dad stereotypes. And my wife, same thing, is like, I'd go to my family, and my family would sometimes like pair off into these like gender categories where the women are in this room and the women are in that room. And so we'd go there, and the women would be like, our husbands. And I'd be like, that's not, what? It just didn't make sense. So then when I started saying like, I'm gender different, I'm gender something, my kids just kind of went on that journey with me. So
Nice.
yeah. And we're a household that is dealing with lots of different things altogether. I'm a sexual assault survivor. I have ADHD. My wife has anxiety. I dealt with depression growing up. So as parents, we try to like talk out loud through our struggles so that our kids can see what's going on. Because otherwise,
I love you.
Yeah, I love that.
Otherwise, I don't know how we'd get through it. That's
right.
So this was just a continuation of that. Just kind of like, I'm talking out loud about what's going on with me. My kids still refer to me as mom. And I'm okay with that, because I just think our terms of endearment are so charged with love. So I don't have a better word for that. I love the love that is in that word, So that's where we're at. And my coming out created space for my wife to come out. And so my kids are kind of growing up in a place without a closet and are allowed to explore their genders. And just, they'll be like, I was thinking about this label. And I'll be like, oh yeah, tell me about that. And, maybe a month later, they'll be like, actually, I was thinking about this label. And, we just kind of talk about what that means and where they're at and respect them wherever they are. And I feel like that scares people, but
no, to me, that's the way.
If they're cisgender, they're going to end up cisgender. Like,
they're trying on. Yeah. They're trying on who makes me feel the most comfortable? Just like you would change clothes for a big event. And what bigger event do you have in life?
It's
right?
what they do,
You try on and you say, "Oh, how do I look? How does this?"
Exactly.
Maybe not this part. Maybe I want to pair this and this. That is beautiful. I think that is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I want you to market honor. That. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm still getting over the
truly
fact that
honor.
I don't know anybody else who looks like me or does things like me. So I'm still creating space for myself, So
God looks like you.
I mean, I think what it boils down to
is
nobody. You deserve it.
Thank you.
I'm going to start crying. No, But at the bottom line, that's really going back to pronouns and identity. That's who you look like. Somebody who is indescribable and has the ability to change and to meet each situation the way they need to meet each situation and in the mode that each situation calls for in order to survive and thrive, not just for themselves, but for others around them too. And isn't that what we see as God and as love? This is how I form around you and you form around me. And that's who you look like, Meg. God.
It's human stuff, It's just a different, I guess, like sphere of the same things we do in the rest of our lives. We're multidimensional beings,
It's truly honor. And the way that you are parenting is going to extend that honor.
Yes.
It's because when it boils down to it, it's really nobody's business. It's nobody's business who you are, what you do, and unless you try and share that with it, and that goes for everybody on every level of the spectrum, race, sexuality, gender, everything. You share what you want to share, and if it makes someone uncomfortable, then they need to deal with that. Someone who requests pronouns, I'm talking to the straight people right now. If someone asks you to use pronouns and you feel uncomfortable, it's okay. Feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If someone asks you to not refer to them in such a way, you honor that. You don't be a dick. We must create space. We are not that big to envelop it all and not allow for anyone else to be there. In honoring our neighbor, in loving our neighbor, in creating a society that's not individualistic, but is truly a society that is saying, I accept you. I don't care if you disagree with it. I don't care if you don't like it. You still honor somebody. Your beliefs and your life do not have anything to do with someone else's life. If you are hurting someone, that is a sin. We've covered this on the shows before. Not being trans is not a sin. Being gay is not a sin. Treating those people like they are other people or not in the eyes of God or not loving the God, that is the sin. So if we walk away from anything from tonight, I want to stress the fact that it's none of your business and just do what they ask of you. Because if you don't, you're a dick. Plain and simple.
You know, if you are walking down the street and you feel like you have a rock in your shoe, you don't point to somebody else and say, hey, take off your shoe because
Exactly.
my feet hurt when I walk. You stop, you take off your own shoe and shake it off. So like you said, if you are uncomfortable with something, take off your own shoe and figure out what's in there. It's not somebody else's.
If something's upsetting you, look inward and see what that is and why it bothers you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Woo! Yes. Somebody preach that.
We just need to be more accepting as opposed to needing to understand everything, needing to, there's a, walk a mile in my shoes, but you don't need to have that to be able to respect someone. You don't need to fully understand someone to be able to honor them. You don't even need to know why they do what they do. If they're not hurting you in any single way, uncomfortability is not any pain. So let's clear that up. So, if they are not hurting you, and like I said, I mean, not your feelings, hurting you, then it should be none of your business. Everybody wants to love. Everybody wants to be loved. And that is who we should be accepting. And like Miguel says, stop being so narcissistic. I respect you. I honor you.
Tolerating something is not the same as accepting something. Amen. Or someone, period. It is not. It is way different. Mm-hmm. What else have we got? That's good conversation. It's time. It's almost done.
It's done. Mo, final words. And do you have anything to promote?
Let's see. I am a community educator through Yellow Brick Road, which is my local nonprofit in my tiny little city of Beloit, Wisconsin. So you can check out yellowbrickroad.org. We have events and cool stuff, and we'd love donations. We were trying to host our first queer prom this spring.
And because I haven't gotten my act together enough to do the images and all that, I will post your social media so people can follow you and find you and continue the conversation.
Cool. I am
to my really wonderful
TikTok. Find me.
I keep losing internet, so excuse me if my facial expressions don't match up or I've missed something because I keep getting all kinds of jumble. So excuse me for that. Anna, my favorite co-host, what have you got to say? Thank you. So let me interrupt. Thank you so much for asking Mo to be on the show today and for finding them. It was absolutely wonderful. I am honored to have gotten to know them.
That is it. Hi, my name is Anna. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sherry. Sorry I
love
interrupted you.
Again, my internet's been doing this, so I don't even know what I missed. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it. You didn't interrupt anything. But let me go ahead and extend that. I am Sherry Palace. My pronouns are she and her. Do we have any more questions from there? If not, we are right at the top of the hour. We are going to go over and get into the VIP. So if anyone wants to jump over there and ask more questions and come on camera, I would love to see you. But going once, going twice for questions from the audience. If not, I will say goodbye to my beautiful guests. I'm getting nice. Thank you. I don't know if you see that, Mo. And then Michelle also posted something for you to see, but you'll be able to find that in Facebook. Okay. You are absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys on the other side. Another great show, another great topic. I hope that it was enlightening to you. I hope that it expanded your heart and mind and reduced any prejudices or biases or tending for judgment, because that's what we're here for. I will see you next Tuesday. And as always, walk in love. Have a great week.